Okay, we are live.
Okay, welcome to today's PAW meeting. We've started a few minutes late as we were trying to make sure we had our technology all set up in the audio. I hope everybody had a happy Christmas and a New Year. And as we've gotten started here, we have Brittany Meekums with us and Mindy Raymond. Also with our staff, Julie Hall, almost said Torgerson. And Carrie DeGraw, our district secretary and board clerk. So welcome. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen and pull up the agenda what we have today.
Oh, I got to enable that. Okay, now you can.
All right, share the screen and pull up the agenda. There we go. I'm going to do better this about not like leaning back and thinking. I'm going to try to sit up straight during the meeting and make it look presentable for those that listen at home. And we do appreciate those that listen from home. We recognize that it's impossible to come up with a place and time that works for everybody's schedule. And again, as we're starting this new year, the purpose of our PAW meetings are share information, gives me a chance to hear information back from others, but I just want to keep everybody informed. With our agenda, we have Jimmy Birkinshaw that just joined us. Welcome, Jimmy. We are going to just follow the agenda. So with the agenda, I want to just give a summary and just recap the work meetings that we did in December. Had a really busy month in December with our school board. On the 4-day calendar discussion, we had 2 superintendents who currently are in a 4-day school week come and sit, and that meeting is completely online, and I'm sure you guys that are here, you guys listened to all of that. Really, that was just a recap of it. The summary, when it comes down to it, from the research, that there's some research that shows that it's scores are a little bit lower in a 4-day school week, but they say it's negligible. The research shows that if you're going to a 4-day school week because of financial reasons, thinking you're going to save a lot of money, that doesn't really work out. It really comes down to what is it that the community wants overall, and the communities that have gone to it seem to really like it. And the question has always come up, well, why are you even looking at this? And it goes back to the survey. The survey indicated that there was a higher percentage of people interested in it, both in the community and from employees. That doesn't take away that somebody has an opposite opinion on that, but because those initial ones indicated that there were more, we started looking into it. And other than that, I don't know, any thoughts that you guys had from that meeting? That's really just the summary. We had them come. I don't want to recap the entire meeting, but it's just one of those things that for this PAW meeting, I just want to say that the board will be looking at making a decision at the next board meeting, and it's going to be between the 2 calendars, the 5-day hybrid or the 4-day trimester. I don't know.
Well, I feel like the pro for the 4-day was listened to. I think that it would be good to have more information on the other side.
And in what regard? Because like a lot of it's at the point where when you have negligible differences between how it impacts students, then it comes back down to opinion and preference. And I guess that's the thing, is opinion and preference. How do you help those people to say that, okay, if you're basing everything off of research, and the research says it really doesn't matter which way you go, how can we get more, I guess, unless you're just trying to persuade and convince one way or another? Because I had that same question that came up where they said, well, why can't you find somebody that is really against this? Well, they're going to be using the exact same research that the people were saying that was positive. And so I don't know,
Well,
that's a good
not
question.
necessarily. If you have, for instance, I know of somebody that's in education that actually taught at Salmon when it went to the 4-day school week and saw some of the negative things.
Right.
And so that would be good information to know, things like that.
I think it's there. I think we realize that it's not a perfect, like what I'm proposing with these, there's a negative with our current calendar. There was a negative with last year's calendar.
Right.
There was a negative with the calendar before that. Like, I don't know. I hear what you're saying. I just don't know what more we can do. It's been discussed. It's been hashed out.
Yeah, every 2 years or so.
It has. And so I think when we look at that, those that have been in favor are like, yeah, this is great. These people come in and they said exactly what we wanted them to say.
Hey,
I have a question.
Like-
The one that Salmon makes some negative in Salmon, are they still educating in Salmon?
No, they have been in other districts now.
I was just wondering if.
And
if
they're
the
still
initial-
not fond of it. And it was just the
Yeah, what was
the
what was it?
kids that don't have the advocates. They, the silence, don't have the parents.
Yeah.
There were, I'd have to look exactly how I think she had written it up for some of our other discussions of just what they saw they happened to some of the kids that fell through the cracks because of it. So,
And when you're looking at each district's different situation, one of the things that help kids not fall through through the cracks is having an RTI intervention program that's robust and in place.
Mhm.
I'm not saying ours is perfect, but we have things in place to help kids out. Whether it's happening or not, that could be time for a different discussion. From K all the way through 12, we have things in place that will help meet the needs of kids regardless of whether it's one day or another. And that would be the question to say, okay, was it really a 4-day situation for them? Or was it a systematic situation where they didn't have the RTI in place? They didn't have teacher professional development in place? Because those are the things, when you look at Hattie's research, are at the very, very top of what make a district successful to help kids out. And so if you were looking at that and said, okay, we went to a 4-day school week, and from what Mr. Gee said, from his experience of going from a 4-day in Garden Valley to a 4-day in Preston, the difference was when Garden Valley went, they had teacher professional development built into that on Fridays. It wasn't a method to try to say, hey, let's save money, so let's not pay our teachers and save money and let them have their Fridays off. I don't know what Salmon's reason was for going,
I
but
think it was, at that time, it was
financial,
And they're still on it, right?
Mhm.
yeah.
That's why I asked if she was still there, just because I thought well, maybe the main cons were happening right at the initial change, and once everybody's kind of
But
got.
those, if you're going to go to these, it's good to know those so that you can,
And
do you know what I'm
so,
saying? Because I think that we keep making changes, but not looking at all of the, and you can't predict everything.
No.
And that is true. But if there are ways to predict or be prepared, then I think you need to be.
some of the other things that stood out to me from that 4-day discussion was something that West Side was doing, having tutoring available on those Fridays. That's something that I would like to see offered. That could be used through using Title I money, hiring teachers or aides to come in on those days if they would like to. That's one way of making it so you're, how did you put that? You're not, those kids fall through the cracks. Yeah, being an advocate for all kids. Our schedule with the RTI, that's an advocate for kids, regardless of whether it's one way or another. One of the things that I also put into as I was crunching numbers just to make sure that how does it look compared to this year? What would it look like if the board goes to that? If the board chooses the 5-day hybrid, basically it's status quo. What we're doing this year is moving forward, probably with a few little tweaks here and there that are consistent with all calendars. If we choose the 4-day with that, we are really not losing any overall time. We're still above the state minimum, and we actually have more student contact time than we did 2 years ago with the early out Fridays. And the reason for that is our day's a little bit longer than it was 2 years ago. And I'm only going to go off the ones that I'm used to. The calendar 2 years ago, I don't have the numbers in front of me, so I'll just do my best. I can print those off for you if you'd like to see them. Had 5 extra days for seniors and 6 extra days for juniors. And that's where they build in that little cushion. This year is almost double that, if not triple that, with what we have built in for extra time over the state minimum. When I ran the numbers for a potential 4-day calendar, it's actually double of what it was 2 years ago. And so when you're looking at the time with kids, it's interesting because as soon as you add an extra 20 minutes to a day, that really bumps out your time. So, but I appreciate that viewpoint though. I mean,
And that's why I just worry about the ones that don't have the advocates that are vocal, you know.
Because I get that there are. I've read all of the staff surveys when I sent it out. I had a spot for them to fill it out, and they could fill it out and be candid and be blunt. I've read all of those. I've even gone back and read all the ones that came in from when it was discussed the last time. I went back and read all of the teachers' notes. I understand that they have their opinions on that, but where I look at and say, okay, if there's a majority, and I'm not saying that everything is like 51+%, I'm just going to go for it and ignore everything. But when it's 60 to 65%, I need to listen and learn to go that way. And I don't think it's a done deal. I do think that the discussions over the past 10 years on this have actually allowed us to get to a point where we're looking at things, if we're really going to go to this and the board votes on that and that's what we decide, we are considering a lot of things. We're not going to it just for money.
Right.
We're considering the professional development. We're considering the tutoring, and along those lines, I'm going to pull up this
So
example.
will we, if we go to the 40 week, will we do things a little different with our athletic scheduling? I mean, no Saturday games now.
We're going to try. A lot of that depends on what other schools are going to do, because we can't dictate when they do the athletic scheduling. You're now dealing with how many different teams we play.
Right.
8 different teams.
But several
all of
are
them.
on 4 days, so they should be.
I would love to see our 4-day school ones be able to push and do things like this. But again, it can't be. The purpose of this is not to come out and say, I'm promising we're going to save millions of dollars and there'll be no game on a Monday through Thursday. Like that's impossible. But to keep that as a consideration, absolutely. It has to be a high consideration. And that will be one thing that by having a decision made now in January will allow for scheduling. If this gets pushed back and a decision is made in March, that makes it a lot more difficult with the scheduling. I don't know about fall scheduling might already be done.
Usually after
Football and volleyball. No. So Brittany, you had a question, I think.
Yeah,
This is the last draft.
I had a thought.
You know, I listened to the board meeting, the special work meeting, I listened to all of those information. I actually read the dissertation. So I don't feel like I'm coming in blind, like I really tried to see all sides of this. I'm curious, so the survey of the teachers was taken, was that September or August?
In September.
It was September.
It was right before harvest break.
Right now, I'm hearing a lot of, not even in regards to this calendar, but right now, it sounds like a lot of teachers are really genuinely concerned about the grades and how the kids are doing right now. Like this COVID schedule, everybody being sick has really thrown a loop. So I'm curious if how they're feeling about it maybe now, even though it's only been a few months change, if that maybe would change their opinion on what calendar we would want because of how the kids are doing now. Like it seems like the more days that the kids are out, the teachers have been more concerned about getting them back. And also, on the survey, you asked the teachers about a 4-day week and feeding a harvest. Well, it seems like we can't have our cake and eat it too because this 4-day week doesn't allow for a full 2-week harvest. Is that correct?
It allows for 9 days.
Okay. So a little bit less than what we've got. So I didn't know if that would be a factor too, because there are some of those that are pro. We gotta have, which is more important, a 4-day or a 2-week potato harvest break.
So
You know, like there's just things to compare there. And one other thing, as I've been saying, like I say, this is kind of a lot, but just all my thoughts, we'll just spill them all out.
Get them all at once.
Just get them all out, and then we can decipher later. When I was listening to all of the different meetings and the superintendents that came in, they talked about a real pro being teacher retention and teacher recruitment. Yeah, I was going to say investment. It's not the right word, which I think is great. If we have a problem with that in this district, I see that as being a pro. But also they talked about the family culture and how it has kind of changed in their community. And that interests me because in my mind, the family culture, like, yes, we're concerned about that as a community and like how our families function and work together. So it was said, well, you know, during the 4 days, you know, yeah, the day's longer, and they have this whole day off. I'm wondering if those communities, how far they are from like town, like we are. You know, we're an hour out. So those 4 days not being able to have my child go to town for like piano lessons or extracurricular stuff like that. Oh yeah, just do it all on Friday. Well, I feel like I can't just do it all on Friday. So having those 4 days that I can't do it all on Friday, like, and not even extracurricular stuff. Like us personally, my family, I looked into it. Our dentist doesn't work on Friday and our eye doctor doesn't work on Friday. So to say, oh, just move it all to Friday, like that culture changed. Oh, we changed, you know, the whole community changed so that we can have Fridays off as a family. Like that push, I was kind of like, oh, I don't know if I quite see that. And then if that quite works, because Cody Telford mentioned it too. Like, oh yeah, just move everything to Friday. Well, we can't necessarily just move all sports to Friday because of our calendar change. So that was just one thing that I'm like, I don't know how that's going to quite work when we're so far from town keeping everything going as we would like it to go.
So when I attended the ISBA conference 2 years ago, that came up in the 4 days. They had a session on 4 days where we can move on to just say these were the experiences, the things we liked, and things we didn't. Most school 4 day school weeks say that they have an increase in attendance the first year, maybe 2, and then after that it goes back to status quo. So basically, right now, it depends on which household you live in, on how important it is to come to school.
Always, yeah, I would agree.
And there are some people that won't bat an eye about taking the kids out for a week in the middle of the year to go on vacation. And some of them will miss athletic events to do that as well. I can't go out and make a plan and say, just because the schedule is a certain way, that it's going to perfectly match up. And so I realize that if you have piano lessons on Tuesday in Idaho Falls, you'll probably still take your kid out on Tuesday. And so does that mean that the 5 day school week is the only option because of that situation? I don't know. It's something that I'm going into this realizing that it's not going to be just this magical thing that all of a sudden everybody in the community, I'd love for people right now on a 5 day to take school more seriously and keep their kids in.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Yeah.
but
Well, it's just like,
again,
what considerations are we making and what are the most important? Because that was some of the pro for, the superintendents that are already doing it. Like, oh, the family culture. Well, that's what they're considering. So that's why I thought, well, if we're considering this, then we should be concerned
right.
about their family life and piano lessons and, gymnastics or sport, other things that they're doing that way. So that's why I was just trying to wrap my brain around, like, well, that was their pro. Is this what we want to use too? Or if it's like we've discussed the teacher retention, like if that really is a serious issue, then that would be something considered. Is it that serious for us as it is for them? I don't know. Those were just considerations that stuck out to me that they had made. So I was like, I don't know
Here's
what we're doing. The most
as I've
important
been
idea.
as I've been looking at, like, what would be the biggest pros to this, where we have 74% of our teachers who commute to the school. And so whether or not that survey result was completely, I think it was just because really the survey result came back right around 75% saying, yes, let's consider that. I know that some of the teachers that commute out here aren't in favor of the 4-day. And so it's not completely 100% the same. Everybody's going to have their own opinion. But when you have 70% that commute here, that could be something that we look at and say, oh, we don't have places for people to move in and be a teacher here. We don't have the houses. Anybody listening out there that wants to build, development, just putting that out there. But for whatever reason, this will give us a competitive edge if somebody's commuting out. They can say, oh, it's going to be 10 less days that I have to drive out. That's 10 less days that they're able to save some of that money and make that as a decision.
That
Where
accommodates them, but are we asking some families to accommodate them too? Like, you know what I mean?
Well,
We've got,
if we want great teachers out here, let's say we stay on a 5-day school week. And again, I can't promise that this is just going to change everything because everything is going to be hypothetical looking forward. But what if we can't recruit the best teachers?
Well, I think that recruitment, though, having a positive working environment is huge.
Yeah.
I think that would play more than 4-day school week. And because
could be.
people, word of mouth travels.
And
we
and
already
so-
have higher pay.
Right.
and so the other thing is could this add to a potential positive thing for it? Because I don't disagree with you. I agree 100%. Having a positive workplace, people will stay.
Mhm.
But
I think it kind of goes back to what Jimmy said before, like the pros and the cons. Like we're hoping it's a pro to do some things. There could be cons. There might, like we don't know either way. So to say, yeah, like, well, what are the cons? Well, maybe this could be, but maybe this could be a pro too.
Right.
Like it's all maybes. So, which is fine, like just discussion. Disclaimer, just discussion, throwing some of those things out there.
so as I'm looking at this was we did a draft calendar that as I'm looking to put out there just to say, okay, how many
This is the 4-day draft calendar.
yeah.
What are the days that are laid
Trimester,
on
semester.
So-
blended early out? What are those?
So blended early on. So this was a thought that I had because you have to still have enough time built in to have the overall hours. And we were thinking of something to have, as we've done some of the blended this year, it would be nice to have it put into a calendar instead of just like, hey, guess what, this month we're doing this. It's like to have it thought out on how it will work and what it looks like. And so for it would be more effective and people can understand why. Now these are, again, I have a double bolded draft, disclaimer. So what will happen is the board this month is going to decide whether we're going to go 4-day calendar or the 5-day hybrid. And then I'll fine tune all little details and it'll be finalized in February. So there's lots of different time with this. So all of our calendars, we're trying to give a full week between fair and when we start. And that's what we do when we have the harvest break. And so Friday will be off, Friday will be off. We still need to get 4 days in. And so on some of these weeks, we'll have what we call a slide week. So that will be a slide week. There'll be 4 days on that one. 4 days, 4 days. The bolded ones here would be a teacher professional day. I put in here maybe 2 parent-teacher conference days on Friday to give parents options to come in and talk. That way we're not missing a day of school for a parent-teacher conference. It can be done on a Friday. As teachers look at this, you're saying, well, this doesn't benefit the teacher or the employee. The whole purpose of this is to not, again, make it less for what our teachers have to work. It's just making it more systemized. So in reality, they need to work 2 Fridays a month for us to still have the equivalent of a 40-day or 40-hour work week. And so that's why we
Well, and you wanted to get that, the professional development.
exactly
As well, right?
like
What are, do you have the times, like what the 4-day, what the time?
8:10. So we'll start the exact same time that we start now. Nothing will change in the mornings, and it will end at 4 o'clock.
I think there are some misunderstandings about when people initially hear 4-day calendar because from what I'm talking to people, they don't understand that it will be a later day, that there will be less. Is there spring break still? I can't remember. I thought I had heard there was no spring break.
There's
It's
there,
like an extended.
there's like 2 days off of it.
Less than what
like
we
a
normally had.
Yeah.
So less harvest, less spring break, and not every Friday off. I'm not saying that's how it has to be, but that's just what when I talk to people and they hear 4-day
So-
calendar, that's what they think this 4-day calendar is.
Right. Because
So I'd like to get that actually out there because maybe that makes the difference. And I know this is just a draft. I know that's
Right.
a draft. I get it. But draft is probably going to be, you wouldn't do a draft if it's not going to be similar to what we're going for.
correct.
So I want those misunderstandings to be out there. Like, yeah, this is, so we know, like I say, people aren't looking at the time, the break, the Fridays. They just have an assumption of what it's
I
going to be.
think some people,
Some people.
everybody that's been here has always been really conscious about, well, that's going to be a lot earlier in the morning.
Yeah, because we've been here seeing it.
Well, it's not going to be earlier in the morning. It's going to be the exact same. No, they couldn't go earlier.
No,
Yeah.
Hamer cannot go early.
But the ones that aren't here, that are still part of our community, that have kids that maybe they just haven't realized
Yeah.
how involved they need to be, those are the people that I'm
that's-
talking
I
to.
think
Just
that's-
gathering information, not gathering an army to be like, this is,
I
I'm
think
just asking
that's
questions.
I think that's the, if you can solve that issue, I think you're gonna solve our nation's problems.
We'll make
Like-
you president.
No,
Like,
no.
what can you do to?
I just think we all do better with information and some of us don't realize what information we need to have. Is probably, I guess, the gift I will give to those people that aren't here is that there are certain topics I didn't have information on it, but I didn't know I needed to be informed in certain areas. And so that's why I have talked to people that aren't necessarily here, but other moms that have kids in special ed that maybe aren't as involved, like,
Yeah.
hey, what are your feelings on it? Like,
Yeah.
so that's like I said, what I'm kind of gathering from these
And-
people.
And I don't know what else, again,
Because they'll come in later and be mad.
besides me going door to door,
No, and I'm not saying
like
that's what
there's,
we need to
we
do.
are doing so much more to be transparent and upfront and share information, like,
Yeah, no, this is
I
no
don't-
fault. This is just some people
yeah.
don't know, so that's why I said it here. Like, hey, let me just point out that this calendar isn't what some of
And-
you guys think.
And
This
here's
is
the
what it
thing is, I'm assuming there'll be people who, if the board goes to this and we vote on it, and we come a year, they'll be sticking back and they'll come in and say, oh, I told you so. And they'll be the first ones to come in here and say, hey. But here's the thing is, we're going to make mistakes. I don't want to make, this whole process is to try to avoid and lessen as many mistakes as we can make. But going back, this year's calendar is not perfect. Last year's calendar was not perfect. And I don't think we've ever had
Well,
one.
it can't be because everybody has
A different.
And-
what works for them.
And so I
But we all usually work together. Like if they go to a 4-day calendar, I'm guessing the communities, same that already have it, like they go to that, then they change and support it because why do I want to sit and fight something for years? You know, like, yeah, we'll support it.
You want the
Just-
kids to be successful regardless, so even if it's something you don't want, You're going
try
to
and
support it because you want, if our district is not successful, what have we done?
And that's one
Exactly.
thing, as
So
I'm,
yeah, just being aware.
as I'm looking at this, and it goes along with what you're saying, Brittany, because we want the kids to be successful. There's not one way that's the only way you can do it. We can do it multiple different ways. And I think we're trying to have a little bit of concessions with, people say we want a longer harvest. That doesn't mean it has to be, like when you're looking at this calendar, like let's look at what we have for harvest right here.
Oh, I think
They-
it's plenty.
they-
I'm not against harvest.
They
I
have,
pro
they have a
harvest.
Friday
I feel
here,
good about
they have a full week here. We have to come back because we have to start getting hours built back in, or else we fall short.
So you're really just losing 1 day on harvest. So when you say 9 days, you're saying 9 school days, not
Well,
9 days
It's the
total.
equivalent of a 4-day school week, like.
Harvest break, yeah.
Harvest break takes up 2 full 4-day weeks on that. And then if kids really have to work those 2 days, they miss 2 days and they help the farmer work.
But on that September 24th, where a PTC does, a day the kids are not coming to
Correct.
school.
All these teal days are days where kids would not come in. Now, as we're looking at that, how can we help kids who are falling behind if the end of the trimester is on the 23rd? We could have a blended day. I could switch that blended day to the 5th, give them a couple weeks, again, it's a draft. But what an early out day would be is 4 hours of instruction at school. Starts at the regular time and buses leave at 12:45 on that. And so that would be a day where the day prior, students who are on schedule will be given an assignment to do at home, and the kids that need it the most can come in. If a family sees that, so that's where all of our teachers are in, they'll be able to do interventions all day on that early out for both the 12th and the 23rd.
Do you have any feedback on the blended days that we've had so far? What are we hearing? Because I've heard things. I'm just curious, administration wise, how
So
they're going.
So
how this is working.
I haven't had any teachers come up and say, these have been awful. But the reason why I'm guessing that is because the teachers that have liked it have come to me and said, I invited these kids in and I was able to work a ton with these kids. And those teachers were passionate about it and they were excited about it. So I think the tool is a great opportunity. Then it comes back to us to say, are the teachers all taking advantage of it right now? And part of it is it's new. It's the first time we're doing this.
It's not perfect.
It's not perfect. And so I think there's another thing where, again, parents are like, we don't understand this. Well, we've talked about it in board meetings. I talked about it in PAW meetings. It's just part of the process. So that's what I've heard. I haven't heard any negative. That doesn't mean that it's not there. But I have heard positive.
So moving forward, it's still a good idea
I
to
think so.
utilize this.
I think so.
I think it would be utilized more
And not because I'm for or against,
Well,
I just curiosity.
And another reason why I want to use it on this, because by having a couple of Fridays per trimester or 1 Friday per trimester adds in that extra contact time with students, which helps us meet the requirements of it.
Are we able to build the blended days? Oh, we've been just talking about the 4-day. If they go with, excuse me, the 5-day hybrid, are we still able to do blended and the teacher development, or have we not?
I was-
worked those in?
I was working through that
Harder to work in?
over the last couple of days. It's not harder to work in, it's messier is all.
Okay,
And that's the thing, is we could do it. Like we can do anything with the calendar as long as we hit our 990 hours of instruction time, that we're right at the 60 hours of credit time. That's all we need to really do, and send the board votes for it. We can mix and match all sorts of different things. And so let me show you the 5-day.
yeah, I guess like tell
hybrid.
me the high points between, or the differences between, because it's not just a set every Friday we're off, like once the kind of basics are out of the way, what's the
So,
biggest difference between these two? Because we can say the kids are going to do well either way.
mhm.
I mean, a lot of it is a
They're-
wash. So I guess just now that we're into preferences, like what's the,
So one thing about the Friday, the 4-day, it will be more consistent for families to know that Friday there isn't school, with the exception of just a handful. Whereas with the hybrid side, as you're looking at it right here, you do know. You can look at the calendar.
I know.
I
On top of my head, I don't know.
I know what you mean.
I never got one of those.
I have two. Do you want one?
Well, we'll get you one.
I have one, I have
Before
them
you
on my
leave, we're
desk.
gonna
They're
get
on
a
my
gift.
desk.
See, those of you that don't, you're missing out. We're going to give
Yes.
everybody these magnetic calendars.
I love that. I do too. I have it in my office. Like I have to.
So going back to the preference with this week, I was going in and calculating the different times to say, okay, could we do some of these blended early outs on all these other Fridays, just to say, say with that. But when you look at this calendar, which again, the driving point behind this hybrid calendar was for professional development for teachers. Research, which the research shows that that's what helps the kids do that. Yeah. And so I repeat that a lot just in case people are watching. I know you guys
Disclaimer.
you guys get that, but it would be one of those things we could come in and do a Friday early out blended on those days if we wanted to. It just doesn't lend itself to be as clean and clear cut on the calendar. I know that the calendar that I came into and inherited when you looked, the one that came in my first year, you almost had to have like, use a ecclesiastical
Superhuman
reference.
power.
You had to have like a translator to
Magic ball.
to know, because everything had a little circle and a square and this and that,
Yeah.
and
Cody.
it was code thinking.
Special. More
Have her,
skills.
have her always code.
every.
So that's what,
I mean, yeah.
so this was simpler, even though the Fridays, were in there. That would be a preference where we're 25 minutes away from this in the afternoon. What that will look like differently in classes,
You have the same harvest on this one.
yeah.
Oh, this is
The harvest with the hybrid would be that one here.
Oh, sorry, you
Yeah.
popped back and forth. I'm
I
like, wait,
did.
what did I miss?
I went back and
I
forth between the two.
blinked. I shouldn't have blinked. Okay.
And so it's really just
Is spring break the same?
spring break on this one would be fewer days as well. Just trying to get this one here, I was trying to get 54 days for each trimester, trying to keep it.
Well, we were told by most of the farmers that there's about programs that they can take spring break.
Well, that's because
I was like, so.
going back to my
That's
comment,
crap.
people aren't going to always plan
Yeah.
their vacations around
Right.
the school calendar. They're going to plan it around when they can go.
Yeah.
And we'll see that. We'll see people going during January. We'll see people going during February.
Great, so it doesn't matter if the spring break is technically. Well, it does for when they do their. The
The American Heritage, that's something that we'll have to look at in the future if this is where we go to. And, they'll have to plan it. They will miss some school days. That's all there is to it. But we have blended days that are built in to help them get caught up.
But you have teachers as well. too.
And
So it
Well, when
makes it trickier.
you'll have a teacher. I'm trying to remember when I went, how many staff members actually.
They've
back in
been
the-
taking, I think like this last time there was supposed to be 3 or 4 of them.
And that's going to be a consideration that they'll have to look at. Maybe it can't be all staff members going. You might just have to have. Yeah,
Well,
it'll give a chance for you, Jimmy, to be the chaperone instead.
So I have a couple questions about the blended days. So, did the teachers sound like the kids that they were inviting were coming? For the most part?
For the most part, I think you'll still have some that don't, but that's what happens all the time.
Right, okay.
well, I know free agency, correct?
I had, mine didn't need to come down, but then he felt like he needed to redo a test. And I said, well, then I'll take you down. So he came down and I get this text as soon as he got done and he said, come get me. There is no one here.
So I guess the one thing I wanted to maybe suggest, and maybe some teachers are doing this, my kids' teachers did not, but to let the parents know which kids have been invited that they would like to come that day. Just because they said, well, we've let the kids know which ones need to come, but some of those kids are not gonna relay that information to the parents, or they're gonna lie and
I'll
say,
keep
I
that,
wasn't supposed to be there.
I'll keep continuing to ask that.
My
Because
child's
I have,
teachers did let me know.
your child's teachers did.
Yeah, I did get emails from,
So I think,
not all of them, but most of them.
I think it goes
knew
back down to certain teachers
embracing it.
embrace this a lot more. Others were going, you know, if the kid wants to come in, they'll come in. And but that's the thing is, if it's on the schedule earlier now, where how these evolved, we had our professional day. What my calendar? I'll tell you the exact day. We had the professional day on November 6th, and the teachers said in a meeting, what can we do to help some of these kids? And really, we're trying to pick up the pieces with COVID being out, you know, and we are lucky. I just want to say that right now. We are so fortunate as a district to be able to be in school. Our kids have it, I don't want to say so good, but really compared,
Yet even at Oak schools, they're still not in full.
they're not.
right?
They're not. Who did?
They're still.
I don't
And-
know, it's like 2 days in.
Like we are fortunate, and we actually had yesterday. I had two different conversations with people in Raleigh that have moved from different states to try to get their kids into school. And so when we're looking at it, you know, kind of going back to when Brittany did all of her spewing of questions at once. To answer the question of is it too soon to go to a 4-day if we were going on that? I don't think it matters still. I don't think it matters whether 4-day or 5-day as long as we're consistent and
We're prepared with our intervention.
and we're prepared with our interventions. You know, just to go back and answer that question. And so, but we are really lucky to be where we're at, and it comes because of our school board and our community. Our school board and our community wanted to have our kids in. It would be a lot harder if we were in some of these other school districts where people are like, oh, we can't. And also our teachers. I haven't had any teachers come to me and say, I don't want to be here because I'm scared. Like, you know, you're listening out there, thank your teachers. Our teachers are doing a great job. And some of them have had real reason to be concerned. You know, some of our teachers do have compromised health, but they still come because they know it's best for kids. And that is something that we're not going to find everywhere. And for us not being perfect in every element, that is something that's awesome about our teachers. So.
Hey, can I ask this because it wasn't clarified in the beginning of this year?
Yeah.
When I was like, where the high school and junior high have merged, what is the attendance policy? And does that change yearly, or will either of these calendars have the same?
We need to
attendance
revisit.
policy?
We need to revisit all of those things.
Okay, so it
And
wasn't
look at it.
necessarily.
The attendance policy things have been really thrown out the window with COVID,
Yeah.
like completely with COVID. And
So let's pretend that didn't happen. What did?
Not put on the spot. I don't know.
It was.
I think it was like 4 days or 5 days they could miss before
And
they.
this year, like excused absences have been more lenient.
Oh, absolutely.
Just because of
We
COVID.
had to do that because if
Not worried.
Oh,
about it.
totally,
Because
yeah.
Yeah.
I just,
You're-
my child is sick right now, and I don't know how many days she can miss before we're in trouble.
no, we'll work with everybody on that because that's the one thing about compulsory attendance. People are going to come sick, and then when they come sick, they spread it and they knock everybody else out. So are we really gaining? And that's something that we can even look at. Are we really gaining?
Even another year when we don't have
Yeah.
COVID, it's probably okay to have a more lenient.
Well,
Well,
if they
I'm
had
wondering
were
if-
sick, you had to go get a doctor, go to take them to the doctor.
Yeah.
To get a note so that.
Well, that's that's, yeah, what I'm wondering too
that's-
for future.
That's one thing that with COVID, we can come back and look and say, and rethink, why are we doing it this way?
I think that's something we're discussing in policy next week with our work committee.
Well, I've like being able to say, hey, my child is sick, and someone trusting me.
Yeah.
Because when
I'm a
my
parent,
kids are sick,
we're making it fun.
like, they're sick. But I also can't just run them into the doctor's office, because we have one of those awesome doctor's offices. And some people might not think it this way, but I think they're awesome, because they say, these are the guidelines for bringing your child. And they say, unless they've had a fever of this much for this many days, we don't need to see them. Unless we have this or this or this, we don't need to see them. So trying to get them in when they had like
To get a
a
doctor's
fever
note,
for a day and had to stay home to get a doctor's note was kind of a pain. And I didn't want to take them in because it might have just been a Monday fever or whatever else. And we had to, that made me feel bad because I couldn't just come in and say, hey, my kid was sick, because no one trusted me. Or, well, someone might have trusted me, but that they didn't take that as my kid was really sick.
And those are-
that's what's excused and what will not be excused later, I'm curious about too, because going the longer, obviously if I choose, because we're getting out at 4 o'clock, and I still want my child to do piano lessons in town, which we don't. I say that, we don't go to town for that, I've seen that law. I really do try, I look at the calendar and, oh, we have this Friday off, let's try and,
schedule things out.
yeah, I try, sometimes it's not available.
Yep.
But, so with that, like, okay, now I'm faced with, 4 o'clock, what if I can't get things in? Like, obviously, I don't think my child taking piano lessons and taking them out early the same day every day. Maybe that's not excusable. But like certain therapies in particular that my child has, I can't just schedule all the time. And it's been harder to get those excused even before COVID. And so something like that, I would really
Let's
like to
let's
look at.
revisit that other time because
It's a
that
whole
it
can of
should
worms.
be.
Well,
That-
okay,
that
so
should be.
Hannah has eye therapy right now, and they've switched us from a 4 o'clock appointment, which I pulled him out at 3. So negligible, like half an hour for PD and
We kind of do that too for therapy.
so they moved us up to 3 o'clock. Our eye therapist was more than willing to sit down, write out a note, says this therapy is going to be this time, this day, every week for the next X amount. And I will take that note to the office and about it. But I am hoping that
So
helps
that's-
because
I'm hoping moving forward, I know we've been leaving this year. Moving forward, here's my philosophy. I hope it can trickle down. I hope we can get it. We're here to help you guys. Like, what do we gain as a school to be like, oh, we're counting you absent because you're taking your kid to therapy? Like seriously.
Well,
Like,
and I think it's just like makes me feel bad when they're like, oh, your child missed again. Like, not speech therapy.
yeah.
Like, what? I'm sorry, that's what we're
and
doing.
they don't work in second.
The school doesn't offer it to her right now because she's older, so we're trying our best. So that's why I say, like, what's the policy? What is it? That's why I'm asking. I think this kind of goes hand in hand. I know it's a,
So know what my general like,
yes, you want to help
we
me.
want to
We're
work
friends.
with you. Like,
We're friends.
we're friends with everybody, not just Brittany, but like we want it to be able to work. And so those are things we can keep in mind as we move forward.
In the past,
That
they
would
had
be great.
to
I would
have
appreciate that.
the documentation, like your people that work, the attendance secretary had to have that documentation because if the state would be trying to say, and they wanted. the
I
documentation.
I understand that.
But now I
sometimes
don't know.
it doesn't work.
Here's where it's,
Like
it's
with
usually more relevant for high school. Other questions on calendars?
On calendar.
Yes.
Well, kind of calendar, I guess. So I was talking to one of the teachers engineers yesterday for a few minutes, and she did research back the last 2 times we had 4-day week discussion in the district. She's been here for a while. And she said she did a lot of research, her back when Murdoch was here. That she found the academia basically meant, there was no change in it. except for when you went to combined class.
Mhm.
And so how, where we have several combined classes between here and like within our school district, how, what do you think, how do you think that's gonna affect?
I think it goes back again to where's our RTI? What are our programs? Because when that was done 10 years ago, we didn't have the same reading intervention program in place that we do right now. We didn't have an advisory mentoring period built into the schedule. Again, whether it's being utilized the correct way or not, we have the tools in place to be able to handle that. And so the split level classes aren't going to always be there. It's just going to depend on what is your population. Because if, like, we're talking to Cambridge School has 15 to 20 kids in a class. I'm not going to dump somebody else in there. It just depends on what's the population. Tarleton right now does have a 3rd-4th split, but that's going to not always be there. It's going to be based on what the population of the students coming through.
Right. Does Tarleton have first grade, first, second?
Nope.
Okay. Let's see if we can.
No, Tarleton right now has one class that has a 3rd grade, 4th grade split.
And are we having good feedback?
From the teacher, I've never good feedback. My son is in that class.
Then we have the sixth split.
I was actually a little like, oh, how's that going to go? But I think so parents that how's a kid in the class doing. I think they're making I bet that was an accident.
Didn't even put any thought to it. I just kind of rolled the dice with all of this stuff. And just,
That's how he does that. Surprise!
He has a collection of
Disclaimer,
magic
I
8
don't
balls.
believe that. For anybody listening, that's really thought. Anyway, she had said something about that, and I thought, well, maybe that's a good question to ask.
Yes.
and I don't know, and that's something that I don't think was brought into the dissertation from
I did not see that at all in the dissertation.
which I know he does in their district. They utilize a 1-3 split,
Okay.
and they do that on purpose to keep class sizes to the optimal level of being able to get.
So they have one.
Mm-hmm. And so maybe a couple of years ago. But again, if you're going off of research that was done 10 years ago, that was also done off of research that was probably 10 years older than that. And looking at things that are in place now, I would go back to the same thing. Our interventions, our teacher preparation. Our teachers are so much more prepared now than they were 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Like we have, not saying we're doing it perfectly, there's always a lot of things that we can improve on, but that's what our goal is, always improve every single year. Where are we at? And we can improve. Other questions on calendar? This has been a good discussion.
Just one more. So a goal, if we go to the 4-day, that would be encouraged would be to get the sports on the Friday, and that would help alleviate the busing issue that we've got.
We would try to do that as much as possible.
But that is a goal of this.
It's a goal, but it's not going to be, again,
It's not promised, not
because
guaranteed.
scheduling games is not as easy as us just putting out saying this is our schedule that we want. We have to deal with every other team,
Yeah.
and they're also dealing with everybody else, and so it's like a giant jigsaw puzzle. I'm trying to find open dates.
So I guess more of a hope grow that this calendar could alleviate the busing problem. Maybe.
It could. In the fall sports, it's something that it would help out with that, but it's not going to solve it. We'll still have a problem here and there. We're still going to have a problem, regardless of whether calendar we have. It's not going to be perfect. Aren't you going to be done in the 15th spot? Come on.
I'm sorry, I tell you, you would fire me after winning.
We'll keep giving us substitute.
They probably want to fire you.
Am I not over good things about that?
I'm thinking that's no news is good news.
I would like to say though, when they got this like 4 years ago, I was completely against the curriculum. And after being able to go, being given resources to look at and data, and I did sit down with him in a meeting, and he said, yeah, you know, the plan.
No, he rolled the dice.
I rolled the dice.
He has a good focus.
I don't. You can't wait to do it. I'm horrible at poker. I know that we play into the. I can never, and cards come out. Oh. This is good.
Can we
Okay.
look into the right now?
Don't take all my money. So during the board meeting, any other questions on calendar? Just a summary from board meeting. The three main things that came out that I want to bring up are we discussed the bond ideas and supplemental levy, and I have the 21st century grant. I'll talk about the 21st century grant first. This is something that we have an option to apply for this grant. It is due at the end of this month, but part of what a 21st century grant is kind of an after-school grant, is what it is, or for services that are provided to kids after school. And I'm not sure the need, and I'm kind of in a tough spot on knowing how to apply for a grant when I'm still in limbo on what my calendar is going to look like for next year. And so I don't know if we're going to apply this year or because we can apply next year. Every single year they have a grant cycle that opens on it. We have had it in the past before.
What is our pre-reduced rate now?
Right around 50%.
In the high school, what is it? So I did try for the Gear Up grant, and we were 47%. And if we would have gotten that, all of those kids that would have went through that program would have graduated with like $4,000 scholarship.
Right.
But
We're not high enough.
and we tried to get, so we even, we wrote the grant anyway because sometimes they will
Because
say, okay, yeah, you are 50-some% in that.
and sometimes it depends on who applies for it too, because if money's left over,
Yeah,
they'll
so
trickle down and go for that.
but they wouldn't, they're like, no, 47. So the 21st century, it doesn't go with anything on.
All grants will ask for that information. And so we'll put a plug in. So on our website, all of our applications are online.
The second push to do that application for new students.
We've seen a few more people apply. There's still some out there, but again, until it becomes an issue where somebody calls up and says, hey, you owe money now for too much, sometimes that's how long it takes.
I wondered if it would be down because the people didn't have it.
It is.
And so that, and that should meet grant application.
Yeah. Yep, and that's why we're pushing that out. But the 21st century grant, some of the things that requires is that we partner with a community group. And I'm trying to brain, like what community groups would we partner with? The only one I can think of would be possibly the library, since the library is a community library still. That would be one that could be utilized, whether we do it this year or not. I don't know.
Salmon,
Yeah, what else?
they did this, I'll do some looking. I don't know if they kind of made a community group.
And combine with them.
Because it seems like it all came out about the same time, but I know that.
I'd be interested. This is if you ask her. Because again, I don't know if it's going to happen this year or next year. Because the other thing is you have to offer 100 days of contact time. And if I'm looking at 4-day school week, it's almost every single day. And if they're already here until 4 o'clock, how many people would really want to stay later? Could, if we did some of those Fridays that weren't in summer school, I don't know. So I'm just curious.
I'll have to check.
It seems like the learning days be considered an after school. Or a different-
No, because the blended learning days are counted as a day in school. it's a student contact day. All students are assigned an assignment, whether they're here or not. But
Even though husband work with like an program
Yes.
because it's open extra.
yes,
So what about the days between tutoring, like math tutoring?
That would count.
Or whatever,
that could. So the math tutoring, like if we just did tutoring on those Fridays where we didn't have a professional day, or even if it wasn't professional day, we had paraprofessionals or somebody doing it. That's something that could fall under a 21st century grant.
What about the full
Ooh, that's a good one too. That's why we have these meetings.
Nobody's even writing it down. Woo!
I know the foreign ladies are coming, and I don't know if they're doing it this year, but they're coming to the classrooms and doing like a little
Oh,
lesson.
I'm friends with
4-H lady.
4-H lady, one of those 4-H ladies. She says the only way she gets into her classroom is if that teacher answers like that. And she has had a hard time. Some years, she's like, yes, let's do it. Some years, those same teachers are just like, oh, yeah. Does that make sense? So unless you have like a consistent basis, like the same teachers, because this is the same, these are the same teachers.
Mhm.
At least one of them has been the same teacher for several years. And she's like, this year, like last year, was no big deal. This year, she's having a hard time getting hold of her, getting with her, they just find that. And I understand that years are different, like this year is different. So, yes, but if we have a consistent like contact where we can say, hey, yeah, we can use our hours for this or whatever, but yeah. They love to come out.
And the
But
other
if
thing
it's
is,
built in as part of the school program,
Yeah.
then it's.
this 21st century grant also does allow for transportation. So that's something. Like I said, whether we do it now or I realistically, it's probably going to be done next year. But just with everything going on, unless the stars and heavens all align, we'll be able to
His dice, his tarot cards, and now the stars.
the magic. But the 4-H one could be something that really, if it was like on those Fridays and a couple days after school, or I don't know. That's the hard part because I look at like my kids. We don't really need an after-school program, but there might be some parents out there that say, "Hey, yeah, if you could have my kids till 5 o'clock, that would be helpful for me." I don't know how many that is here. When in my previous district, we had the 21st century grant, we had an after-school program, and they do have to keep track of the number of participants that come. So I don't know. I don't know. I only have a small sample of 4 parents here in the district. I don't think you guys. What would an after-school? How could it benefit your kids in your guys' situation?
4-H would, because it's hard to get out of me.
Well, and they were coming out once a month, and they had what?
Oh, they had a lot.
They had like 20.
My kids
Yeah.
would go to the 4-H meetings.
Coming to these meetings, and it was nice because you got in, like, you're not just with your little group of 4-Hers, you're with, like, a community group of 4-Hers. You're learning different things, yeah, more things, like, stemming from these meetings, my kids have run with the idea that they want to learn way more. They are currently doing the Skeleton part of 4-H, and will compete at the state level on the 21st of this month. But they have to learn about 4 different species. I mean, and she started teaching the different species with the kids when she was here. But yeah, I think it's really good.
Yeah, we looked at doing robotics, doing robotics before, and we had, it's tricky, but the INL does have an outreach, and I'm wondering,
Yeah, the INL could be another.
you know, I think we have resources, we just need to really explore them and kind of have a vision.
Those are both really good ideas. 4-H, that's something Jefferson County, the INL is another one.
4-H is already good.
I'm sure I know it's too. They come with
Mhm. Perfect. Okay, well, that's what the 21st Century Grant, part of the process of applying for it is seeking out input from the community. That's what I'm doing right now. But again, whether we apply for it this year or we push it to next year, it really depends on, because there's a lot of different things up. The supplemental levy was another thing that we discussed in the bond meeting. And with our increases cost of insurance and right now our supplemental levy, this is what the board voted on, to consider increasing that to 360,000. A supplemental levy lasts for 2 years. So every 2 years, this vote or question will come up to the public. Right now, the 300,000 is used to pay for salaries and benefits for teachers. And so the board did vote in favor of this. And so on our next election, it will be to this level. So
there will be an increase on that.
there'll be an increase asked for on this one. Now, I'm gonna pull up this bond discussion one here, because this is where people are gonna say, I'm gonna mix bond and supplemental levy kind of together a little bit, just because overall finances in schools, here's a list of all the different, I guess, elections or different things that we can generate from bond elections or levy elections. So let's take the communication that I had last year when we were doing all the bond discussions. So the 1920 school year, there was a total overall. So this is where people ask, how much is it going to cost me? What are we costing? And so the rate that West Jefferson School District gets from taxpayers here is $261 per 100,000 of your taxable of your property taxes. So yes, this hits farmers harder because they're the property owners. Those that don't own it don't feel the same impact. And if we look at the past 10 years, overall, our 10-year overall levy amount is averaged out to $3.48. That's what it's been for the last 10 years. Every year that we don't have anything else on the books, then that number goes down. And so you can see that in 2018-19, which was the rate right at 350, which was just barely over the 10-year average. It dropped down to 261 and now down to 237. And so if the plant facility does pass in March, then it will go back to 261 is what I asked our financial advisors to say, what would be the amount we could go to stay with the same level as 1920? So that would be for the supplemental levy, which we use for to continue with it only requires a 51% amount to pass. And so that will be coming out. We'll be sending out flyers to families, let them know that that's what we're voting on and that's what it goes for. So any questions on the supplemental levy, anything like that? No? Okay. And so the other thing that came up then, and this also stemmed from last bond or the last PAW meeting with bond ideas in the future plan. What are we going to do? In the last meeting, the last couple of meetings, the discussion has been, what are we going to be, a district that continues to remodel, or are we going to look for the future? And this is a hard thing, because I don't know. Maybe this is more of a dice thing going on here, because you look back to the history of our district and you take the 38 building. I was talking with Mr. Soderquist, with Larry the other day, and he was talking about a picture that's from the museum on a calendar. It has a picture of the 38 building. It's just sagebrush all around it. And the caption that came from the newspaper was, "What a waste of taxpayers' money. Just another government, just another thing. Like,
how are we ever going to utilize 4 upstairs classrooms and an entire basement? You know, and that wasn't even 100 years ago. It wasn't even 100 years ago. And so, you know, unless you're one of those apocalypse people or end of the world or whatever, we're probably still going to have buildings here in 100 years. And we're going to have people going to school here in 100 years. So the thought is, what do we do to make that plan? And with the last bond not passing, I take everything as a way to learn. And maybe that wasn't the best plan, but the thoughts were good. The thoughts were good, and some of the discussion that came from that was helpful in where we're going. So I shared the idea in the PAW meeting and said, well, the next major classrooms that need to be remodeled are science classrooms. We can either pump money into our old science classrooms, and if you go into Mr. Packer's classroom, that would have been Sawicki's, for those of you that, you know, everybody knows that's Sawicki's room. It has some issues if you go in and try to remodel it to bring it up to a modern day science classroom. It needs more space. You have the gas lines that have to be brought into it. What do you do? And at the end of the day, we could pump in money, and at the end of the day, you have an old classroom with remodeled stuff. It's like, my wife probably gets offended. She doesn't watch these all the time, but it'd be like me taking my house and going back and just remodeling it with $200,000 worth of stuff. Why don't I just build a new house for $200,000? You know, that's the thing, is at the end of the day, in my house, the electrical, I love it. I love my house, by the way, but my grandpa's house was just added on to, just like our school district. Like, you had this and you added on to it. And that's one reason why I think where some people disagreed with the last bond, because it just felt like one more add-on. And at the end of the day, you know what? It didn't pass. And that's a fair argument. That's a fair argument to say. So the proposal was, do we run a bond right now to just have some remodels done, or do we jump now and have something bigger? And Brittany, I'm not gonna put you on the spot, but your comment to say, well, why do we have to wait for others? So what I'm gonna, you know, and that was a fair question, because every 5 years, if you look at it, those of you that are here in 5 years, yeah. You know, Justice is
I'm gonna be done.
7th, like, seriously,
I'll be a senior.
you'll be a senior.
Our kids will be seniors.
Your kids will be
We're having
seniors.
grandkids come through, Jimmy.
And so it's interesting as I'm going back with, where do you go for plans? What do you do? Are people going to look at it and say, hey, this is just another 38 building idea. Why are you doing that? We don't need that. It's just a waste of money. And so here was a thought that we proposed at the last one that came up with, just finding the places that needed to be remodeled. This would be Sawicki's classroom. This would be or Mr. Packer has a few years to go before he can get that called his. But these are the two that would have to be remodeled. So the thought came, well, why don't we start with our newest building, the new gym? This was already made to build out on. And so when they put this in, that was smart of them, because it's already designed to build straight out on. A wing could be put onto there to be a science classroom with a lab and a science classroom and an additional classroom. That could also be maybe another classroom. Just, I don't know the spacing. This is just the initial stages, throwing it out. I talked with Mr. Soderquist about this as well. And I said, okay, we know the community generally gets behind academic things. They'll get behind it and be like, yeah, let's do that. And people are saying, well, why are you talking about the rest of this? Like, what do we do with the rest of this space? If we came on and we built 18 classrooms over here, what would we do with 18 classrooms right now? They'd say, well, just tear this down. But if you walk through the halls of our current school, it's not ready to be torn down yet. And so we're trying to think, what can we do to put into place a plan for 50 to 100 years down the line? This would be the location right here where the gym is, and you go out. This would be the location of a new high school. And so we could propose a bond where we build just this wing and this wing only. But what would happen is as I talked with Mr. Soderquist, he said, whether you agree with extra spots where we put, this would be a good spot for another auxiliary gym, which could be used right now. So 7th and 8th graders don't have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to come to practice. It builds character, it does build character.
I'm sorry, but the dance team had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning.
And so-
We were in high school,
They
so-
can't drive,
Yes.
so
yes.
then.
Dance team can drive, which is another thing here,
They shouldn't drive,
like,
is what should be
Well, they shouldn't be driving.
so
They're not
so
enough, but yeah.
it's actually cheaper in the long run to come in and fill out a block of space.
Right.
Because if we came in here and only build a science wing and then put a parking lot in or this or that, then the next time you go to build, you got to tear that parking lot out, go in, and now you're maybe 15 or 20 years behind on where that's at. And so it's cheaper to go all the way in. And so that's one reason why we said maybe an auxiliary gym here with an updated fitness center, weight room. I like the idea of making it big enough where dance teams or cheerleading teams have a place to go and have a place that we have mirrors, whether that's here, whether that's repurposing the old weight room. I don't know. Like, that's one thing that our cheerleaders don't have a place to go. And how do you build a program if you don't have it? Like, it's this, you have to have that there. You'd also have a place for concessions and bathrooms that are closer to the outside facilities there, instead of going all the way over to the other side. Other things that would look at that, they'll say, well, what are you gonna do about the lunchroom? Because you said there were needs there. Yes, we still have needs. We would need to upgrade the inside. But one of the ideas that came out of these PAW meetings is if we have another gym here, it would be easier to repurpose this old gym into a commons area and a gym still. One side of the gym, these are little tables that go out, it could be utilized during lunch. They pull the tables out of the wall or out of the area there, and they have a place to eat lunch at the high school. The cafeteria could run a cart over there. They might even increase their sales by having it there. That would allow our junior high and high school to still have lunch at the same time, where right now there is overcrowding in the lunchroom. But we would need to have some remodeling done in there. Some of the kitchen things need to be remodeled as well. So that takes the place of this right there. I highlighted this spot right here because right now Mr. Hadley teaches out of that room. That high school classroom could be brought over to here, opening it up for the junior high, leaving it out for other things like that. The special ed was another thing that came up on this one as part of the discussion. Right now our special ed is just back here in the back. This would allow this to potentially become a special ed classroom. This would be an additional classroom. So you're actually increasing spot for different things for growth if we do start to grow. And then this could go in for 50 years. And in 50 years, they might be to a spot to say, okay, is it now time to tear down the high school? 50 years I'm not working here. I might be dead. Yeah, probably will be. But seriously, in 50 years, like I'm 91 in 50 years. But this plan leaves it so that in 50 years, they could come in and build 18 classrooms over here and tear this down. That's a thing and create the space. And so that's one of the things that the high schools are the more expensive things to do. It's just, it's people say, well, what about the cost? What is this going to cost us? I don't have an exact amount. I have been on the phone with our architect and construction manager, and they were thinking that it was going to be between 4 and 5 million for that.
We can go up to
Which for our
And we can
tax
go up to
base,
12.
We have to go in stages.
Yeah.
We're never gonna be able
We
to
could,
do this.
if we were just all in at Vegas, 12 million.
Roll them dice.
But that would,
decided going more than 6 would be like an issue.
yeah. And so going back to, oops, get that away.
Raise all of the taxes that we're not used to. Staying in this zone keeps us in a tax space where we've been at
Yes,
recently, so it wasn't.
I need to move.
I just want to say one thing I really like about this plan is the using what we've got. It feels smart.
This feels better than the last one.
Let's
It does.
redo a couple of these little areas, make them better instead of, like you say, like, oh, that building is useless now. Like, it feels smart. That's the only word I can think of. It feels smart to do it this way.
You know, but there's still always pressure that comes on this, because there's like, this is these decisions, I guess that's what the superintendent gets paid for, you know, to do that. But it's not like I just sit back and be like, oh, what can I do to like just throw this out there and say, okay, basketball team, guess what? You get another. It's not about the basketball team. It's about the community. It's about the future. It's about the science.
This profits a lot of areas, different classrooms, different
And
teams, the community. There's a benefit for so many because it's so smart.
And this plan still addresses what we did last time. So it wasn't like, oh, we're throwing that out of the idea, it didn't stick. Let me see what I can go trick people into voting for.
It solves one of the problems we have.
Yes, it does with this idea here.
And not wasting money redoing science classrooms that aren't still going to meet the needs that we want.
Yeah.
I like that idea too.
So when we look at the cost, and these are just approximate numbers, and this one came from December from the rates. Now these rates always change. So if we ask them again in April, they change a little bit more. So the current overall amount is $236. If the supplemental levy passes, it goes to $261. With the future bond ideas between 4 and 5 million overall would increase to right around $350 per 100,000. So it's right around the average. And so the 4 to 5, let's see, because on these here, the one thing about it is you have to add the difference between here and here to this. That's $24. So you basically add 25 to each of these things all the way across, and that's what the cost would be to the district for any projects going forward. So I think the soonest that this really could be proposed with not rushing it too much, but also at the same time would be August again. There's a benefit of having an August bond, as I talked with the construction manager, because if we ran it at a different time, after a bond is passed, then the bond lawyers all have to get together and decide who purchases it, and it takes a little bit of time. And then once that's all finalized, that's where they come out and they say, this is the exact amount of money you get generated from the bond sales. So these are all guesses, on approximate guesses. And then that would put us right to a time where a year from now, the construction manager would be putting out the bids. And this is the best time of year to be putting out bids because it's December, most places are doing that. And then construction would be able to start a year from spring is how that would work. So I don't know how long that would be, but that would mean that kids that are currently here, possibly the freshmen, would be able to take part of this. Maybe.
So this is still 2-3 years if it passes in August.
If it still passes in August, it would still be about 2 years.
2 years before
But
you
you're,
start anything.
yeah. But that's part of the whole process as you think about when do you do this, why do you do that? I feel like we're at a crossroads. If we jump on and we do another 8 to 10 years of just remodeling, are we missing this window? And if that's the case, a remodel, and here's the thing is, even if we pass a $1 million remodel only bond, it's still going to cost us about the same as it would for this.
Right, because it's only 5 years versus
It's only 5 years.
20 years.
And then to answer people's questions about, well, if we go into this bond, does that mean that we're stuck with never being able to if more remodels? Because we will always have a cost at the school. Like there's always going to be a cost to running these buildings. There's always going to be a cost to what we have. But the way that it works we could still come back 4 to 5 years after a bond is passed and borrow a small amount of money for other things and keep the levy rate the same. It's just if the community wants us to run it at let's just run our business where we're paying everything off. It's difficult for us to do that. So I don't know, this is exciting. This is exciting things. I really do. I like the process on what led us to here. I think it feels like this is what we need to do, but part of it is going to be, I know Brittany, you said, my job is to help people get the information.
I did say that.
You did say that. But that's the type of thing where I don't know what else more I can do besides.
I talked to one of the science teachers and he's told me that he had this conversation with you and, said, what can I do to help? You need to stand out on the street sign with, street on, with the sign and let people know.
Well,
Throw some
and
cameras
when
at them on their way by.
and when we get more information from our, the more specifics, that's when we can put the numbers in, but these are the approximate numbers. And the approximate numbers that they gave us last time were really close to where we were at on this stage.
But I do have to say, I noticed this last time with the bond election. This is the first bond election I have been here for.
Yeah.
The first big thing. A lot of people didn't care until it came right down to, we're gonna vote on this.
I know.
And I was like, how did you get through this far and be like, oh, I just don't like this?
Yeah.
You didn't have a chance to look at it, so people are not out there searching for the information.
It's being
Sorry,
delivered to their mailbox.
It's gotta be delivered and then they
Well,
look at it and they're like, well, maybe.
and
And
partly
some of it is, they just don't have kids. in
you'll
school, so,
have some people that are super excited about this.
Yeah.
And you'll have some people that say, I see this gym
And
and
right.
I don't want to have anything to do with it.
Right.
But when you go back and start saying, well, the reason why, what else do we put there? If we're going to
Right,
add
yeah.
a science wing,
Well, and if
We-
eventually you demolish the high school, that gym is gone, so you're gonna need it
yes.
in the future.
Well, and you've had a large part of your patrons and parents want a new gym.
Yeah,
I know that you've
it's
been
not-
told they voted the other one down because they wanted it to include a gym.
Yeah.
So, you've got both sides that. And when
Yeah.
people call into the district office to schedule the ALC gym and it's never available, they're very upset because we don't have another gym for them. to use.
It will be utilized. I think that's
It
the
will
thing.
be utilized every single day.
That's the thing is both of these will be utilized
Mhm.
and there will be extra added costs. When you add on, there's going to be utility costs that go up. There will be custodial costs that go into it. There'll be maintenance costs. We recognize that. But, I don't know, question, Jimmy?
Well, this is just something that for 8 years I've tried to get fixed. The locker rooms, the boys' locker rooms in the new gym.
You have spaces between the showers because we live in a phone world.
Yes, I am tired of wet underwear. I think it's ridiculous that our kids have to shower in their underwear.
And
Yeah.
in this new section, they could put in another water heater. Get the hot water they need.
I think that with liability reasons, that needs to be.
Yeah. And close
Yeah.
shower cells.
I don't disagree with you.
Well, the girls have shower curtains.
I did do, they do.
I'm not gonna say
I
that
didn't see them the last time I've been in there, but.
in the
think they're supposed
I don't
to.
in the new gym they do.
Uh-huh.
Not that that says I've been in the girls' locker room. I shut the lights off and lock the doors at the end of each thing. All right, I'm just making sure. Disclaimer.
Like, every time I was in there, I yelled, I shut the lights off.
But yeah, so we'll keep talking about that. Again, the purpose of this is just we're getting the word out. We're trying to get it other ideas. I should have put draft on there because
Well, I'm really excited about the science lab. And one of the reasons working with the kids and looking towards their futures and looking at the colleges. I bet when our kids go to their biology lab or their chemistry lab, they're blown away.
It's
Yeah.
different going to a college science lab versus being
well,
like.
and just with your comment about robotics, we could make a lab a little bit bigger and have a robotics section and utilize that space instead of just for science. So the idea would be having 2 teachers on either side of that lab And then those classrooms feed into that whenever they need to.
Yeah, I think it's something that's been needed for a long time. I think that the push with STEM education, we can't offer a lot because we don't.
That was my daughter's favorite class this last year. She took STEM and she just every day was so excited about the different projects and gathering her supplies to do stuff. Like it excites me that women excel in science.
I think a lot of the kids would really love it. And science jobs are a big thing. And I think they're going to continue to be a big thing because people are pushing for more and more innovations all the time, whether it be STEM type stuff, science stuff, whatever it is. So.
Yep.
I don't know, when I watched the meeting too, I wasn't able to attend that board meeting when you kind of presented this to board, but I got the feeling of excitement watching that because the board seemed excited too, that light bulbs went on and they were like, hey, like they got how thought out this was and well use of different areas. And
I think, again, that's the first step is board approval. And then it goes and we put it on the agenda. But the biggest part is community buy-in. And that's going to be the part where
It's gonna take a lot of people discussing that within the community.
Yeah.
So what's the next step on this?
Next step on this one here is we'll have our architect and construction manager come back, meet with Mr. Soderquist. I've talked with him already and about these plans. And again, they're just preliminary on it. Like what would we do to be able to make this work? But this does allow us to think, okay, 50 to 100 years in the future, this is a direction that we can go.
when do we expect to have more, like, if we're shooting for August, when, I guess, what's the timeline there? Like preliminaries until when? Like when do we see things start going?
Like probably in April and May.
That would be kind of
The
like the
board-
end of preliminary.
The
and
board
then
at the
start.
latest has to vote on it in June for us to have it ready for an August.
But to be able to
election.
get community support, we have to start by.
Just sooner the.
Yeah, I
March
think
or
it's
April.
sooner the better.
Well,
No.
I'm wondering, this may be an awful idea, but what if we did our community meeting 2 months before the bond election?
I think
Give
you could
us
do a
some
couple
time,
community
well, yeah,
meetings.
do an initial community meeting, say, hey, this is what we're going for, let's get all your questions in here, we will get them answered. What can we, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Is a preliminary meeting needed now to be like, this is what we want to go for? Any other thoughts, ideas? Like Jimmy's like, hey, locker room, can we look into that too?
Yeah.
Because maybe after preliminary findings, it's too late to start adding
We
other stuff. Or
wanted
you've got enough ideas for now.
I
Who
had
knows?
last time I wanted to have meetings in April.
Right,
And if you remember what happened in April, we were
Yeah.
told we
Oh,
couldn't
yes.
go around people.
yes,
And
no, I understand that.
and so yes, I think we do start.
Started.
Well, I think that could be just part of why it failed.
Yeah. It
It's
is
I
just
think so
that
too.
lack of
lack of being able to communicate to a certain extent.
Yeah.
So.
You
'Cause I
know,
know,
but
like, my
it might be,
parents-
I see every situation, the last one failing might be a bigger blessing because I like
I like
this one feels better. And so was it the philosopher George Strait? Some of God's greatest gifts are unanswered prayers. Wow. So but we'll need to start that. So the next step, Julie, is we'll get the architects here and set up some other community meetings.
I say, if you want us to help get
Mhm.
excitement, I just need to know
When?
when, and I just need a little guidance. I can't just be like, oh, let's have a meeting tomorrow, or like, I just needed a little, like, I'm excited about this. Like, I like a lot of the things. I would like to support this and inform people,
Mhm.
but I just need to know,
What?
Yeah.
ready, go, or like.
I can get you a loudspeaker for your car.
Drive down the highway.
I don't need a loudspeaker. Have you met me?
Well, I have, but as you're whizzing down the road at 60 miles an hour, you might not want to stick your head up.
Throw pamphlets, attach them.
So
Yeah, little rocks.
last thing I have on today's meeting is our December 30th update to the athletic plan. So the last 3 or 4 weeks, the superintendents, our ISBA, there were a couple different ones that were involved in working together with the governor. And so if you remember, we did send a letter from our regional superintendents into the governor, and at first he said no. But the superintendent group and other groups continued working with the governor, and he did come up with a stage 2 plan that's really similar to what the school board asked me to do a couple weeks ago. And so the highlights from this one are basically 2 people per spectator are allowed in, but we do have to extend the amount of space where people are sitting. And so we did have people 6 feet. We're going to move them to 12 feet. The masks are still required when you're not sitting next, or if you're not spaced in your area. Other than that, that's really the highlights of this plan. We're going to start doing it. They did say that for wrestling, they're still working on the exact details of that, but they said wrestling will not include more than 15 student participants for JV, varsity. So for duals, tri-meets, and quads, we'll figure that out with because wrestling's just a little bit different because they don't know what weight they start on, and it's going to be impossible for us to do that. So we'll work that out. But it outlines the different essential personnel, the health and safety measures that are asked of us. They are asking about entry and flow. Our gym doesn't really allow us because we have the one main side to have people coming in on different sides. So that's why we'll just make sure we'll remind people to wear masks, but they will be sitting in separate areas. Now that we have a plan in place that all the schools are going to be following, we will be going back to some of our other protocols. We will be charging attendance gate for those that come, so our season passes will be honored for that. Those community members who aren't able to get in at the end of the season, we'll figure out how to make it right. We'll do whatever we need to do. But other than that, this is not just for West Jefferson. This is for all the different schools, and
All the schools that sign
I think all of them are.
are good, okay.
I think all of them are. Yeah, if they did it. And so we're going to follow this. I know there's always talk and rumbling to say, okay, now that we have this, what can we push the next envelope? I just want to put it out there right now that I signed my name, and so did Mrs. Cherry, to say that we are going to follow this. And ethically, we're going to do that.
Well, and numbers have started to come down, so in all eventuality, we can go back
we could.
to
Now,
another plan.
this is stage 2 plan.
Right, yes, in all eventuality, we can.
So if we get moved to stage 3, then it was at 50?
Stage 3
I can't remember what
is
we said.
50, but also that's where it had the exemption in,
Yeah,
where we could have more
Oh, right,
people.
right.
Yeah.
And so really it comes back down to there's the stages. And I remember I did the hierarchy, the stage, the CDC is the bottom one, there's suggestions. Then your regional, Eastern Idaho Public Health, and then the governor's orders. And so that's why there's a little bit of confusion, because if you look at Eastern Idaho Public Health right now, we are in the yellow. And you're going, wait, there's no difference between the yellow and when we started school. Like,
I think it'll be interesting once they get in session 2,
I do too,
Yeah.
what will happen.
because we know,
We are different on this side of the state.
yes.
Yep. and so we'll see. But if stage 3 goes in, remember that's the one that's up above everything. That did give us a chance to have an exemption.
And our exemption is already in.
It's in,
It just needs to be
it
reviewed.
just needs to be sent back with a yes, it's been approved. So that's where we're at right now with
As
the
we're
COVID.
scrolling, I quickly saw it mentioned cheerleaders.
It did mention cheerleaders.
And I just have a question. Are we,
Right now,
where are we at with our cheerleaders, since I have one?
with our cheerleaders, we didn't have there were two things in place. One was that cheerleaders initially weren't there. The
Mhm.
second one, how it was explained to me is the cheerleaders dropped below a certain number.
Okay,
And so
From our school.
so
From
we
our
don't have a
school.
full cheer team
So we
right
don't
now,
have
so
a-
we're not having, we're not
don't
cheering.
have
so we don't,
Okay.
so right now we don't have a full cheer.
I missed that part of it. So that's why when I saw it, I was like, wait, hold on, go back.
Yeah, but
Okay.
but going into the future, like I'm not thinking cheerleaders are out. Like you can see that in the bond process. I would like our cheerleaders to have a place to go
Well,
and
haven't we used that for Title IX? We've used cheer as being a sport to.
you
keep
probably
people-
know more than I would on that. But I don't know exactly, but it is one of those
So
things
if
that
we don't offer it, then
it's offered, but you have to still have
We
a
just didn't have
certain
enough
number of
cheerleaders to keep
people.
the team right now. We did for
but when
football
was
season.
there,
but
when was
we're-
there? There's been, I remember not very long ago, we only had a few.
yeah,
They
there's
weren't an
when
actual
we-
team or paid a coach at that time, right?
part
That
of
what was?
it, you're
was volunteer?
also looking to pay like a coaching stipend, and if kids aren't showing up, are you
Right.
like how do you there's a lot of other things besides just the
Well, the demographics of the kids change.
Well, demographics changed, they've changed. I mean, we had 28 wrestlers, I think, this year, and we have 2 coaches, and both of our basketball teams have dropped in numbers, and each of them have 4 coaches. So,
one of those is a volunteer coach that comes on their own, and the other 3 are to their specific team. So when you have a varsity,
still have-
JV, so
one more coach than, if you're looking at numbers.
yeah.
And it's hard, and to be honest, it's harder for wrestlers, for the wrestling coaches to be able to coach at those big tournaments when you have
Yeah, we could,
kids. I mean, so if we're going to look and
If we
say, oh,
can-
well, for this happened, the demographics have changed in all of our sports.
Right, yeah.
So I
they
think
change
all
from
of
year to
those
year.
things need, we were pretty,
Is
level,
there
but
a
now-
coach to child ratio? I know there is for classrooms, but there's probably not for sports. Is that what I'm
so
gathering?
we could hire as many coaches as we wanted to. It's just
Right,
finding the money.
Yeah.
That's what we could hire 4 cheerleading coaches if we wanted to. One
Well,
for each
I
girl.
know when
I
we were,
was asking.
if we didn't have enough freshmen, and that was the first year I was on the board or the second, we did not pay a freshman coach because we didn't have the numbers. And I bet we might have had more numbers than we have this year.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And
but if you're talking for cheerleader, and I don't have a dog in the fight, I'm just saying, it looks like,
and part of it's hard because like how could we have predicted?
Commitment from the girls, I think is what happened. It wasn't a coaching issue. It
No.
was the girls decided we don't want to cheer anymore. Some of them.
Yeah.
And that took it below the amount that was
Because that would happen.
necessary.
That would happen on other sports. So that's
Yeah, I understand. Like I say, I had just.
so that goes back to your question on this one here. So yes, those schools that have a full cheer squad, they'll be able to bring in 6 JV cheerleaders and 6 varsity
And
cheerleaders.
is that only for their home events?
Yes.
So if we had 6, they'd be allowed. Is that something we should even ask, or is this,
Probably not for this year.
okay, just let it be what it is?
Mhm.
Okay,
I think so.
that's fine. There's no question.
I was gonna say.
Yep.
Maybe 6. So our Panther girls, let them go in and yell.
We have
Of
actual
course, that's more than
cheerleaders that
6.
still wanted to do it,
That's
that
only-
paid all the fees to do it. They
I
should be
know.
the first ones to go cheer.
And
Like,
we
they
got
would be
one of
able
the
to.
letters.
So that's the update on the stage 2 athletic plan. I'm sure. Should we do some I don't have a poker face and I'm just rolling dice, but I bet we have a change before the next board meeting.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
On
Because
the-
we've
on the
discussed it
athletic
today,
plan?
there will be something new that
that's
comes
what
out in
happens
the
when
next
we
2
have to
days.
do that.
Well, that's what I'm saying though, is like the numbers, I do not
But
ever look at the COVID numbers,
if
but
it
they are
does-
starting to go down.
I
They're
think
what they
I
were
think
in
it will be
September.
I think it would be a move to
Initially,
stage
yeah.
3.
They're
But I think you give it a week or 2 and the numbers are gonna start going up again
going, well, because of.
because of the
holidays
holiday.
now.
Yeah.
They should have had that Christmas spike by now, though, to be.
Yeah.
It takes about 7 days, I think.
Yeah,
And
We're right
7
at 7 days
was,
of Christmas. Yeah.
we'll see the next couple days on that.
Well, you gotta remember your COVID numbers are showing you what's happened 2 to 5 days
Yeah,
ago.
Yeah.
So, so your
Yes,
test,
'cause you
you
gotta
know,
wait.
because your test results are taking,
Yeah.
most of them.
Friday
take
and
that
Saturday,
long.
we'll see.
That's
Friday-
where we'll see.
Friday
I was
and
gonna
Saturday,
say,
we'll
we're at day 7, but we gotta wait a few days.
But the trend line though is different because right before Thanksgiving, we were high.
High, yes.
We were high right before Thanksgiving, then it went really
Even
high.
higher, yes.
yeah.
And now we were low. I think it will go up, but it's gonna be, yeah,
We have no counties in red right now in our,
which is awesome.
everybody's in the orange or below.
In the state,
In our
Okay.
region,
in our region.
East Idaho
And that's-
Public Health.
That's the only thing I don't love about the governor mandate is that, like, rural Idaho is on, in a certain region, and
Yeah.
So
more populated Idaho has a kind of a
the only
concentration.
reason it goes for the whole state is because we can no longer from our rural hospitals send to the bigger
Right.
hospitals. And that's why it's all of Idaho,
Yeah.
just
Yeah, but we
because of the
incentive
hospital
voice.
resources.
Right, well, thank you for your time. Any questions, other thoughts? Brittany?
Yep, I came with one.
Awesome.
So.
Well, is that an evil laugh or is that?
No, it was awesome was what, it was, I've maybe called and left you a message and a text about this topic.
This-
And
is
we've
that the-
talked since.
Is that the
and-
ski school one?
Yes, yes, I'm just asking about ski school. Originally, I had heard there was no for this year because of we didn't want them on the buses together, and I just wanted to know where we were still at on that, because I think a lot of the kids have been a little, well, they've been disappointed
They've
all
just
year.
been bored with a lot of things.
Yeah, so I'm just curious, because
Yes.
as parents, there's a group of parents that are willing to
Still go
still
to it.
try and make something work. And we can call and still see if there's
days?
no. Well, this is the thing.
It's-
I don't
it's-
understand the whole school program,
So
school
the-
sponsored, but I didn't want to just be like,
Yeah,
us as parents are going against the school and we're taking our kids anyway. I would like to,
I don't know,
I don't know the ski
like,
program.
here's the thing
well enough.
is I don't know either.
You don't either, okay, okay.
And it's.
Well, and that's fair.
They've got
That is
new-
totally fair.
They've got new owners up there now.
At this, at Kelly.
Other schools are still doing ski school, so we know it's still an option. One of the mothers that always arranges it said she could call and see if there were still dates available. To
Mhm.
me, it was I understood that the school was the one that said, no, we can't do this program this year. I didn't know who was in charge of that decision, if an appeal could be made to this person, whether it was Mr. H or you, both names were mentioned. I didn't know where to go. I would like to see what we can do to try and do it in a couple days.
So here's what we're looking at. Is ski school a school sponsored activity? No.
Is
It's a club.
Okay,
It's a club.
is that like
Because we paid-
sports?
they-
Is it-
they
No.
paid
It's
for
not
the
even
bus.
considered in the sport.
No.
Just used the bus,
They
but
just-
they paid for the bus.
Well, that's what's always been through the school though, that I
So-
paid fees to the office, and so this is where I'm confused.
And I don't, like, here's the thing is I don't know all of the details behind how school started. I know there was like talent sprouts from years ago and I can't remember everything. And I gotta remember I worked for a different district for the last 15 years prior to the last year. It's still possible. You have to remember when we had these discussions from the beginning of the school year until this very moment,
Well, in November was bad, and I think that's when the
Week-
decision was
week
made.
by week by week, things can change. And so when we're looking at different provisions like that are in stage 2, they say don't have groups of 10. You know, so that's where it makes it a little bit harder to be like, okay, here we go and do that. But I think
Understood.
we can revisit it. I won't feel like it's like I'm being pushed. I would be the one that gets to make the final decision. Mr. H would come to me and I would be the one that makes the final decision on that.
Because I didn't mean to cut him out too by coming straight here, but
No,
I knew this meeting was
No,
coming up.
and
so
this
I
is
just-
and this is good because all things can be be revisited and discussed. It really can. Like, if it's made by man, it can be changed by man. That even includes this man. You know, it doesn't mean that it's final. But at that time when we first discussed it, we were right around 40, 50 COVID cases. It just like how do you plan for that? It's you know, I had a call from the community member that's in charge of the community play. She's like, hey, can we? I'm like, you can try to have it, but I can't guarantee that we'll even be able to have it. But as we're looking at a club event, something, let's discuss that. I think it'd be revisit. So let's look at that. Can it be appealed? Yes, let's appeal it.
And that's just for fifth
let's
and
look at-
sixth grade students, right? Because that's the free.
Well, no,
Those
it
junior
ends
high.
up being for those kids plus their siblings can go at a discounted rate as well. So they don't just say, oh, it's just these grades. It was always offered that there is ski school, ski classes for these grades. But if those students participating, I can't remember what, I don't know if it's full.
Through,
Well, 4 through 8.
we did 5 through 8, and then we went down to 4 through 8, but then it depends on who was running it.
Yeah,
Somewhere right in there.
And I don't think there's a specific rule. And what it comes down to
But
is,
siblings are invited to go for a
Numbers.
discounted rate, so
As
my,
numbers.
whatever child was there, I could get their siblings at the same time go, and they were allowed to ride the bus if they paid the bus fee and all of that.
and I think as long as they're paying, so basically what this is the community ski school group, which would be your group, is renting a school bus to take a group of kids. It's not a school sanctioned, like, so that it doesn't fall under like, this is our thing that we're sending you. But we are working with you and allowing it, because it's safer to send a big group of kids on a bus than have
10
30
different parents
Yeah.
with 6 or
You
5
know.
kids.
30 kids riding with 10 different parents. Or
Something.
so let's revisit, especially now that it's a new year and we have numbers down a little bit lower. Like,
Okay.
honestly, it really does depend on what the state of it's at. So
So if I talk to the lady who's normally in charge,
Mhm.
she finds out some dates, we could work it out with the school and see if a bus would be available.
yes,
And that would be, that would be the next step.
I think you could get that in place just to see if it would even work, and then we can revisit the appeal.
So maybe,
Okay.
maybe it was the reason for saying, no, we're not doing this. That was for the amount of kids that were gonna be on the bus.
Possibly.
The school probably didn't want the liability.
Well, and I didn't quite understand that it was club, not even considered sporting, like
Yeah.
that's, So I
maybe
understand
it would be,
no-
we're just not offering the bus this year or whatever versus.
Which
so
is
yeah, we were just discussing,
which
like
is-
I say, what can we do to still get our kids to go? And the bus was a prime part of that. Well, we don't have a bus as parents. So if that was the kind of contract between the community group, was that we just rent a bus?
we might have a bus for surplus coming up.
And you can have a party.
Oh, well, I know people in the community that have buses, so we
Yeah.
actually talked about that like, can we rent your bus? But same with the liability,
Liability.
like, I don't know as a parent if I want to take the liability of
Yeah,
30 random kids, like maybe a couple of my close friends' kids was all.
Right.
But I didn't know how many we needed to get the group discount. There's actually been a lot of thought discussion behind my ski school question. So, okay, I'll probably be in touch.
yeah. Let's revisit it. It's
Okay.
okay.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
And because I see that where we're sometimes put in tough situations as a district, we're trying to adhere to the stage 2 requirements and keep everybody safe. And at the end of the day, nobody knows the right answer. And a week later, it could be different. And it usually is, and sometimes it's not. But I appreciate your patience. I appreciate the way that you're bringing that up, because that's exactly how this process should work. And it should be a situation where, as a district, we can have those types of conversations without me being upset saying, what, I made a decision back in November and I'm sticking with it. No.
Well, like I said, I wasn't a part of that either, so I did felt like you deserved that respect. Like, I wasn't there, I don't know what happened. Help me help figure this out.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Burning questions, thoughts? Upcoming board meetings, next Monday, we'll have a work meeting that's open to the public. We'll be just reviewing some policy on the 3000 series. And then January 21st is our annual regular meeting. That's where the school board, during executive session, will evaluate the superintendent, and they will also decide on whether they keep their same roles as chair or vice chair during that meeting, and we'll set up the calendar for the year for all the different board meetings. So a lot of exciting things. Thank you guys so much for coming. This has been a great discussion. I hope those that listen in later or now have been able to get it. If you guys have any information or comments, call us here at the school, and we'll keep moving forward. So thank you and have a good day.